How we doing?
Can't complain.
Comme si, comme ça.
Zach and Christian are here with Mitchell, who is myself, and today we're discussing Ron Swanson's favorite movie.
Yep.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
it's one of
a good
3
scene.
movies that he's watched, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Bridge on the River Kwai,
Hey.
guys. Everybody wake up. We're going to Thailand. And it's not a good time now, and it wasn't a good time then to go there. I'm just kidding. Okay. 1957, British epic war film. I kept the epic in there because it sounds epic. Directed by David Lean. Great Expectations, Oliver Twist, Lawrence of Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Produced by Sam Spiegel and based off of Pierre Boulle's 1952 novel. And although the film uses the historical setting of the Burma runway construction or railway construction, the plot and characters and screenplay are all pretty much fictional. The cast includes required American star William Holden, Alec Guinness, everyone knows him as Old Hermit in Space Desert, and Wood Green, Middlesex military man Jack Hawkins, because he looks like a military man, so he cast him as that all the time. And then Japanese male sex symbol Sesu Hayakawa. So, on that note, what did we all think of Mitchell's 52nd World War II war movie he's watched?
Well, I'm going to jump in here. I always jump in first with the well. I had only seen this once before. And this is one of the last films that I think my family, rented and watched all together as just a, hey, kids, we're going to watch this movie. Because, when you're a kid, you kind of just watch whatever your parents are like, let's watch this as a family tonight. And so I was maybe 12 or 13, and we watched The Bridge on the River Kwai, and my sister was pretty bored. But I remembered this being really impressive and really kind of knocking my socks off. And I think bits of it still do. But coming back to this, I do think there are flaws in the way that it's put together. You referred to William Holden as required American star. I don't know how much truth there is behind that, but whenever William Holden shows up, it does feel like a totally different movie, especially when you get to the middle, where you have this really kind of everything with Alec Guinness is this really sort of stripped down, gritty, kind of depressing anti-war drama about duty and honor and responsibility and courage, and then you cut back to William Holden and it feels like Goldfinger or something. The tones don't match up especially well to me with the William Holden stuff. And I think this is very clearly a studio film in the way that it's edited and put together and shot. David Lean is a filmmaker who does some really impressive stuff with these big budget epic productions, but I do think that Lawrence of Arabia is kind of his masterpiece, and this is sort of a dummy run on the way to Lawrence of Arabia. Some really impressive stuff. The bridge construction and the bridge destruction are amazing sequences. We watched Apocalypse Now earlier this season, and Christian, you made comparison to it in your review, and I do think some of the DNA of Apocalypse Now is definitely present in these sort of older epic war films. But I think the studio mannerisms and kind of the limits and expectations of what you can show in a movie at the time do get in the way in a few places and make this a little more corny than impactful in certain segments. So I still gave it a 4 out of 5, mostly for the ending. I was on a 3 out of 5 up until we get to that kind of final explosive sequence where it turned it into a 4. But I think it's definitely shy of a perfect 5 for the reasons I mentioned.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd echo most of those sentiments. I landed on a 3.5, and I was similarly blown away by the ending, and that sort of helped me stick to that. Zach doesn't do half-star ratings, but I think we sort of landed in a similar spot for the same reasons. I think the studio mannerisms, and I think the first hour is kind of a chore because and I get the purpose behind it. We're sort of meant to muck ourselves in the mire of what these guys are going through, sort of lying in waiting and going to be forced to work and what have you. And then the sort of identity crisis that Zach mentioned again. Zach's just on point today, I guess, with the obligatory American star was at times distracting, and I have other like little subjective petty complaints, but I don't want to focus on those because I think this was really good. A 3.5 for me is a very good film, so I don't want to get carried away in any sense of the word. I was really, really impressed by Alec Guinness, and I've talked a lot about how sometimes recognizable stars are distracting to me when they play a less recognizable role, and that wasn't the case here with him at all. Probably helped by the fact that he did this 20 years before the first Star Wars, but still. Yeah, the bridge, that set piece, I guess, is awesome. The ending is great. Like I said, I kept thinking that they weren't going to actually destroy it, because I figured, they'll do something like maybe it'll stay, or the explosions won't go off, or they'll cut away from it, or surely we won't see the train come down either, And so that was a really satisfying moment when it did. But I don't know if we're going to talk about the score or not. At times the score bothered me. But I'm sounding very negative. I don't want to sound negative. I think part of why I didn't love it is also the circumstance in which I watched it. Today's a bit of a hectic day. I'm preparing to move back to school, and YouTube ads. Oh my gosh, I think I got ads like every 8 minutes.
8 minutes. I timed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was slightly annoying. Not all of those were well timed either, but at least they were short and skippable for the most part. 3.5 out of 5. I understand why it's a classic. I think it mostly deserves that status, and if you like war films and if you're a patient movie viewer, I would recommend it.
Sounds like we need a musician's minute.
Oh,
brain.
Dear. I don't think anyone wants that.
I know you do. Yeah, I wasn't planning on talking about the score. I barely even thought about that. Oh well. Yeah, I really enjoyed this film a lot. I've seen bits and pieces of it. My dad said I saw it when I was really little, so I'm pretty sure I had no idea what was going on. But explosion at end, cool. I know I've seen that end scene probably. I've seen like the last 10 minutes probably 4 or 5 times before somehow. But anyway, yeah, I think it's a really great film. I think I think it's really hard to have such complex discussions and focuses on individuals versus big ideas, because you kind of have, especially at this time, you have a lot of films that try to address these bigger ideas about war and responsibility and leadership and kind of just take it head on as a big concept, and then they have the lower, they have the characters themselves guide the concepts. But this feels a lot more character driven. It feels a lot more charismatic in general. I think Alec Guinness pretty much steals that, and Saito obviously is also very expressive and great for that. But this doesn't feel like it's really trying to be anything other than what it set out to do when it comes to that. And I think it doesn't feel the only really what you both kind of mentioned, but mostly Zach kind of touched on this. The tonal differences is just kind of weird, and I just kind of think of it as in my head, my meme brain starts, and it's this is supposed to be funny contrast, it's supposed to be I'm supposed to be laughing kind of contrast, but then as it kind of eases into the serious reason why he's actually in Sri Lanka and everything, and why he's going to be eventually brought back into the mission, it kind of just feels a little bit like they just had all that American stuff as to set him apart, I guess, and to make him a more interesting character and really point out the fact that he's American. He's just brash and crass, and just every time he talks he's just trying to own every conversation he's in, which is good when he finally talks to what's his name, gosh, when they find out about the rank, and when he's admitting he had a different rank and everything, and how he's faking being an officer, and he's oh well, we already knew about that, and he's crap, they got me. But otherwise, yeah, I think besides those tonal issues, and also the thing that really stands out to me, and maybe it's just because I've always had some historical vendetta against a lot of focus on kind of the easy good and bad relationship between Americans and Germans, or Russians and Germans, and things like that, and the American and Japanese stuff, I just never felt like it was really done justice when it comes to actually doing the history correctly, and really like every major film that everyone like heralds as being really good that's World War II and has Japanese in it, they don't show everything that they need to really show if they want to actually be historically accurate. For the case of this film, I feel like it mostly works, but it's really hard to kind of. Maybe this is kind of what Christian was. Maybe he can elaborate on it, but I feel like this is kind of what Christian was mentioning. It's kind of just hard to really believe that the camp is really terrible when it's just really hot and like there's really not a lot of horrific things really happening, and there's not even that much left to the imagination either. And maybe that's kind of an issue, but that also might be a false expectation that this is going to be like a prisoner of war film, when it really is more like a war epic film focusing on these bigger war ideas with these characters. But otherwise, I think it's really unique. I think it really stands out from POW films, and it stands out from any regular World War II movie, and I also feel like that makes people not as inclined to watch all 3 hours of it. But I feel like it's really, really well paced, and really like the story doesn't really feel like it drags for me at all. If you're not aware of the runtime, like if you stop, we probably paused it like 10 times and I was getting frustrated. I was like, wow, this is kind of a slog, but but otherwise, yeah, I think it's a really well done movie, and anybody who's interested in the genre at all, I think it's a really good little side thing that hasn't really been done before. But yeah, I guess I have a lot of trivia things because there's a lot of really interesting stories about this. I'll try to be brief but concise. So from the Irish Times, so details of behind-the-scenes clashes are revealed in letters held at the British National Archives, showing War Office objections and the anger of a member of the FEPAL Committee, which is Far East Prisoners of War, who stressed officers were obliged to focus on escape and sabotage rather than cooperation with Japanese captors. So this was kind of like a big focus with a lot of critics with this film because it was so different from the main message of the book and of what actually happened, or at least what this is vaguely referencing. So Major A.G. Close from the War Office's PR department, after getting the script, said, "I don't think much of this story. In the first instance, it's quite untrue and only very occasionally resembles the facts as they were at the time. I'm perhaps biased as I worked for 3.5 years on this particular railway." He had sent the script to others, and they agree with me that it would not go down well with the British public. So the scriptwriter, Carl Foreman, was blacklisted in Hollywood after admitting to being a Communist Party member and was not credited in the final film, and tried to assure the War Office, highlighting script changes and the fact that the film did portray acts of sabotage. Eventually, the War Office grudgingly agreed to RAF cooperation, but stressed it was not entirely happy about the film's story, which does contain certain inaccuracies, which does not, in our opinion, always authentically portray the behavior and conduct of British officers. So, do you feel like the film is an anti-British film, and do you feel like it's intentionally trying to portray any group any one way? And you can also, there's also mention obviously of the Japanese portrayal. Japanese were generally frustrated with this as well because they're very stereotyped villains. It's a very common thing at this time that the Japanese are portrayed pretty cut and dry. But what do you guys think?
Well, I would say to the idea that the British are like disrespected or anything like deliberately bad, I would say poppycock to such a suggestion.
Jolly bad show.
Yes. And, I would even say, like, on the Japanese side of things, I don't know how strongly I want to argue against this, but I don't know if I saw as stereotyped as I would have expected, at least, especially given this is only, like, barely over a decade removed from the conflict. And yeah. I think probably more... I describe it as more, like, morally black and white than stereotyped specifically in terms of the depiction of like the Japanese characters.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think that this is I'm sure there are historical inaccuracies here and there, and it doesn't surprise me at all that the powers that be would have ruffled feathers over a detail here and there, but nothing that I think the average viewer would notice and hold against the film, or notice and hold against the whole country.
Yeah, I I don't think it's an anti-British film as much as I think it's a general anti-war film, and the point is sort of that it's kind of impossible to be on the side of absolute right in war. Which I think is the overall point, because even though Alec Guinness's character thinks that he's doing this thing that he has to do, and he has to prove that the British can get this done, which ends up being an ultimately misguided concept. The alternative is to get all of his men killed in the jungle by ordering them to attempt to escape. And there's really no proper way out. I would say that I agree with Christian that I don't think this is like stellar representation of the Japanese or anything like that, but I do think it's there's at least an attempt to address the Japanese as human beings with their own like fears and anxieties and their own threats hanging over their heads. The Japanese commander in charge of the camp, it's basically suggested throughout like the last half of the movie that the main reason he is doing this is because if he doesn't finish the bridge, he will have to kill himself. And so there's that implication that like this man isn't just like a cog in this military machine. He's not just this evil commander who hates the Americans or hates the British and wants to destroy them at all costs. He's a man who's afraid for his own life and is afraid of the people who are in charge of him. And that's kind of the reason that he's pushing forward. There's kind of this idea that in war, whether you're a prisoner of war or on the battlefield, everybody is just kind of pushed forward in this great big machine that eats, and you either move with it or you fall under the wheels and die, whether by the hand of the enemy or the hand of your own side for like a court-martial or execution or something along those lines. So yeah, I think it's rather a narrow view to say that it's anti-British. Does it portray Alec Guinness's character as sort of losing his way and losing his perspective? Yes, but I don't think that's because he is British or anything. That's just that's more of a coincidental aspect of the British working on the railway, so he has to be British for the story.
Right. And yeah, I think in terms of like portraying the British in general, I really think it's not. I totally agree with you guys. I don't think it's really targeting them specifically necessarily. I could see this coming out in the late 50s and in the early 60s and it being an issue, especially with the War Department and everything. But I think it really does kind of miss a lot of the major points the film's trying to it's using this kind of, I wouldn't say as a backdrop, because there is a lot of the ideology that's kind of seeping into their ideals and everything. I think it's perfectly believable that a British colonel being in a POW camp is trying to tell a Japanese captain that you should be following the Geneva Convention.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I feel like that's a pretty, obvious thing. And they also handle that very well with the Japanese perspective as well. I do think there is the benefit of not like showing anything terrible, like anything super crazy or out there when it comes to how the Japanese actually treat the prisoners. But I also think there really is, like kind of what I was talking about, having a tight-knit like idea of what the story is supposed to be addressing in terms of the philosophies on being anti-war and everything. And I think it's pretty obvious early on that was kind of what the focus was going to be. I don't think there was really any attempt to massively like hinder the successes of the British war recruiting and everything. No. And I don't think, I mean, I don't know. If I was in Britain, I guess I'd be okay with still joining after watching this. But yeah, I in terms of the portrayal of the Japanese, I mean, there was like the only real major thing that I think could be an issue would be the just saying the engineers are like incompetent and kind of just writing them off as being a lot worse than the British ones when anyone who has like a vague handle of history kind of knows that the Japanese had pretty good engineers too. I mean, it was pretty relatively on an even playing field when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I did like how they addressed the like how it was not just that they're like explicitly bad at it. It's just that they had like a misunderstanding of how the British were intending on building the bridge, and I think kind of seeing that play out in that committee and everything, and kind of seeing Alec Guinness come into his own issues as a leader when he finally takes, like, he has these aspirations and the viewers riding on those aspirations, and then once he's actually like committing to them, you realize how instantly what am I thinking of, tunnel vision, how much tunnel vision he gets trying to actually, or I guess bridge vision, trying to get the bridge built, and as well as how the Americans handled, and the American himself also, tons of flaws there in leadership, and just even the commando mission and everything. There's a lot of things that were missed, and just a lot of things that were going bad that seemed really believable enough to actually go bad. And it's just interesting to see all those character flaws kind of tumble in on themselves, like Zach was saying, like the war machine, and kind of you just get rolled under if things start to go to crap because of your leadership. So talking about the cast, initially Sir Alec Guinness had doubts about playing the role of Colonel Nicholson. Of course, Guinness had become a much-loved figure on screen, appearing in a series of popular comedies. The Nicholson character seemed humorless, unlovable, and perhaps even dull. To remedy this, Guinness tried to inject some humor into his portrayal. I'm remembering that one scene with with Saito. That was amazing. And he finally takes the drink and everything. Director Sir David Lean was very much opposed to this idea, insisting that it be played straight. Thus began an argument between them that continued through shooting. So while Lean didn't always get along with everyone in his cast, he was very fond of William Holden. Lean found Holden to be very professional and felt that Holden's considerable talent went unnoticed because he made everything look so effortless. And Setsu Hayakawa, Captain Saito, had an eighth of the script because he was limited his English, but it was the highlight of his career, which is interesting because I read a lot about his career, and damn, he was really fighting a lot of things at that time. What a terrible time to be an Asian actor in the U.S. But this was definitely one of his most successful roles, and although not looked too fondly upon by the Japanese, he was very successful in the U.S., and he very much enjoyed this role. So what do you guys think of the casting?
Well, I don't think... I'm unsurprised to hear that Alec Guinness didn't like the role when he was first offered it. I don't think I've read of a single role that Alec Guinness was ever offered that he actually liked. I do think that, whether intentional or not, there is some comedy that kind of comes across in his performance, mostly because Alec Guinness is built like a comedic actor. Just sort of the way he walks, he's like this kind of tall, gangly, awkward-looking man. Like so the way he walks, so the way he walks is kind of like immediately comedic in some situations. I think of like when they take him out of the oven, and he's trying to be like upright and remain respectable for the men, and also so that he's not he doesn't appear weak before the Japanese. But the way he's walking, it almost looks like the way a lot of classical actors do comedy drunk. Where there's the classic kind of mental thing of like a drunk person isn't really sloppy when they move and when they act. A drunk person, you can tell they're drunk because they're trying to act like they're not drunk. And there's this real like focused quality to the way he walks in those scenes for a totally different reason, but just because of like his build and his previous like performances as a comedian just made me think of like, this could be really funny in a different context. But I do think dramatically he totally works. I think, like I said, I think William Holden is serviceable in the film. I just think that the things that he does feel very outside of what the rest of the film's about. But Guinness, I think, is fantastic, and I really love the way that he performs the line, "What have I done?" Because that's a very like typical, "Oh my goodness, I've recognized something" line.
What have I done?
And there's a very like, yes, there's a very stereotypical way to deliver "What have I done?" But the way he delivers it, it's almost like he's like confused or like he just woke up, and it has this very different feel to it that I think makes it instantly memorable compared to all of cinema's other "What have I done?" All these classic Shakespearean deliveries. So I think it's a well-cast film, even if maybe some actors don't have as interesting things to do as others.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I was going to zone in on that line too. I think it works because it's so non-performative. Like that's not something where I think the way he delivers it could be precisely directed. Like how would you encourage someone to deliver it like that? It's like you just woke up, you're not really thinking about what you're saying, but it's also triggered by something. And it's also like the most important line in the whole movie, but don't think about it too much. I don't know how you get that out of someone. So I figure that has to be credited more to Guinness than the director, just because I can't imagine that being the product of like a spoken description or steps. I don't really have much to add. I'm not familiar with any of the other performers. I think they were fine. I'll just sort of maintain the tonal discrepancy between Guinness's half of the film and the American half of the film. And I was sort of annoyed by how they were just like flirting with the women the whole time. Like I don't know why, but that just bothered me. I guess it's totally plausible and whatever the time. I'm not like offended by it or anything. It just is just a bothersome distraction for whatever reason.
I do think it's a bit amusing that the only character that gets like a legitimate love interest in he gets two. The only character that gets like a legitimate love interest in the whole movie is the American. I think it's very clear that they're like, all right, now here's our British side of the narrative, and for our friends across the pond, we have a few different priorities to address. Oh, I also wanted to comment. We have seen William Holden before, although not on the podcast. He was Damien's uncle in The Omen 2.
Wow.
Oh, jeez.
Wow. He's really come
I
so
comfortably
far.
forgot about... Or no, The Omen 2 was okay. Omen 2 was okay.
It was the third one that was not okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know. He was big chillin' when he was in Sri Lanka, and then he got frustrated. He was like, "Where woman at? I have no woman anymore." And then he's like, "Oh, I got Siamese woman putting on the stuff on me, and now I'm having a cigarette in the middle of the freaking river." Like, this guy never stops. No wonder it was a communist that wrote this. How do they know how all the Americans really are? But yeah, you guys pretty much said everything. I couldn't really see this without Alec Guinness. William Holden, I don't know. They paid him $300,000, which is pretty sizable.
That's pretty good, yeah.
Time. Because apparently they really wanted a top-billed American actor, and that was what they got. So I'm not really sure if that was like a major priority or not, but but yeah, and yeah, I think Saito's good. I think his random bursts of anger are very welcome, considering the circumstances. And I think him just slowly breaking down and realizing how much of his own personal integrity he's compromising to have the British do everything for him.
Yeah.
And it really just, you can see how much it actually matters to him because of his culture and things that he personally cares about. Not just because the Japanese war machine cares about it, but because he actually personally needs to do it, like Zach had mentioned. But yeah, I mean, really not a whole lot to comment on. The supporting actors are fine, and I don't think there's really much else to write about with that. But that's pretty much all I had. There was one other thing. The single longest network telecast in 1966. It was 3 hours and 10 minutes with commercials. ABC just destroyed their evening schedule to have this play, apparently, instead of having it in two parts. But, of course, it was in 1.33 by 1.
Oh, okay.
Pan and scan. So only a little over half of the film's actually seen because it's filmed in 2.55 by 1.
CinemaScope.
Which I noticed right away that this looks insane. Like, he really could have just not done that, but he's like, no, we're just going to full throttle every single scene they're in. Just everything's going to be showing up on it, and you can really see the production design was a priority.
Wow, they only added 15 minutes of commercials. TV has really gone downhill. A broadcast of this would take 6 hours nowadays.
Yeah. Apparently only Ford Motors was the only ones that endorsed it when it premiered, so
wow.
I don't know how that happened, but
maybe they were that green taxi in that one shot.
Oh. Probably. Well, a lot of the engines actually probably were.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
There you go.
Or General Motors. I don't know.
The train was made by Ford in General Motors.
Just put the logo on before it crashes. All right. Yeah. Any other final thoughts, guys?
Yeah, sure.
You can talk about the score. Do
yes,
it.
thank you.
Do it.
I will. It's not like I don't have any problem with the music itself. I just think the way in which it was used was a little bizarre. I think the moment that occurs to me most prominently is when Alec Guinness is leaving the tent, and his men are like rah rah cheering and swarming him and whatever, and it's this grand moment. And then it's got like this very like marchy, like celebratory, but also kind of like starch and unemotional in the way that it's like marchy and happy. And I think I literally said, like, under my breath, where's this music coming from? Because I think up until that point the scoring was pretty minimal, and part of why the pace felt so long to me, but also at the same time why you're so entrenched in the events, is that there's not a lot of like non-diegetic sound happening. There's a lot of like deadness to the air, and I don't know, I guess I would have preferred there to be less score there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, when they're doing the drag entertainment, where did that mean? They don't have any instruments. What is this music coming from? They should be dancing to silence, and we should just hear the clacking of their feet and the raucous laughter.
There might be a few guys with instruments behind the stage, or behind the curtains.
I doubt it. I doubt it, Zach. I doubt it.
Were you in a prisoner of war camp in Burma / Myanmar during the Second World War, Christian?
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. I don't know. What was my other complaint? I don't know. It was something minor, something that'll annoy me that I'll remember in 10 minutes. Oh gosh, what was it? Oh, dang it. I don't know. 3.5. It was a good movie.
Well, Christian thinks he might remember by the time I'm done talking right now. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I think it's a bit rougher than some of David Lean's other movies. And I don't think it's quite the epic that Lawrence of Arabia is. Lawrence of Arabia is a really incredible cinematic experience that kind of transcends the time when it was released. But I did really enjoy it, and I quite appreciate the score. There are definitely elements that are dated in their incorporation, but as somebody who grew up watching like The Great Escape and things like that, it's definitely very much in that line of sort of like militaristic, triumphant music in the few places where there are little character victories. And I also love the whistled theme. They aren't actually whistling Hitler Has Only Got One Ball, but it's the same tune. So I like to think they're whistling Hitler Has Only Got One Ball. It would be appropriate for the time period. Because I don't think they'd beaten Hitler yet by this point. I forget the exact year that the film is set.
43.
Okay, so not quite yet. But yeah, I definitely appreciate it. And I'm going to throw in a little side recommendation here for... I really love the British motoring show Top Gear. And there was a special where they went to Myanmar, and their task was to drive trucks along the old railroad path that the Japanese had built, and to build a bridge on the River Kwai. It's a very, very funny episode, and they did it. They built they built a bridge on the River Cock. They were a bit mistaken in where they put the bridge, but it's still fun.
That's pretty hype. Yeah, apparently, I think it was Lean that was looking where he actually wanted to have this filmed and where the actual bridge was, and he kind of got confused. There's like a million different rivers there.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, I think if the river goes down there and the bridge is over here, this bridge is probably going over this river, so we're gonna call it Bridge on the River Kwai because it's probably on the River Kwai. It was on like the Kwai something. It wasn't on that. And in real life there was two bridges. There was like more of a temporary wooden one, and there was a steel one. Both of them got bombed by Allies, but one of them is still standing today, apparently.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's kind of cool. But yeah, I really like this movie. 4 out of 5. Yeah, there's really not a whole lot else to say. I think Alec Guinness performs in this better than the original Star Wars.
I agree. I think he cares more about this than the original Star Wars.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I don't remember what my other thing was, by the way. So.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah. Disappointing. Disappointing.
Disappointed.
Jolly good show. That made me laugh so hard. I was like, Christian's gonna die when he hears this.
I did.
Yeah. And the American makes fun of it later. I'm like, nice, that's funny.
This did make
Only
me
the
wonder.
regular show fans will understand.
This did make me wonder why I stopped saying "haven't the foggiest." It just kind of fell out of my lexicon over time.
I haven't the foggiest.
Yeah. Week in review.
Yeah.
All right, I'm taking control, and I'm gonna say
Whoa!
this is another right before we're recording watch. But I shuffled my Letterboxd watch list, and my Letterboxd watch list told me that I should rewatch The Sorcerer's Apprentice from 2010. And the only reason this was on my watch list is because it has Nicolas Cage in it, and I put all of Nicolas Cage's films on my watch list way back, all like 115 of them. And you know what? It's not good, but it is kind of a bit of a nostalgic reminder of like a very different time in mainstream cinema. I mean, this came out 12 years ago, which is a major head rush to think about. But it's definitely a time when, and I mentioned this in my review, when the big thing to try and replicate the success of was not the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it was Pirates of the Caribbean. Every major studio was trying to make their trilogy of movies. Even Disney was trying to make a new trilogy of movies that would appeal to people in the way that Pirates of the Caribbean did. And this doesn't hit the mark. But it does have some fun moments. I think Nicolas Cage is pretty fun in it. He's always fun. Jay Baruchel, people seem to love or hate him. I find him quite charming, despite the fact that he's in a lot of very bad movies. And he's okay in this. I think the biggest issue with the film is just the script. It's for one thing, it's barely a remake of the Fantasia sketch. There's like some brief hand-waved inclusion of that sketch, but it's nowhere near as good as the original. I think Fantasia is like one of the best things Disney ever made. And what there is very sloppy. It feels like it's trying to kind of appeal to maybe like the Percy Jackson crowd. I had totally forgotten that the whole film is about the search for a mystical young wizard known as the Prime Merlinian, which is a very dumb pun that is impossible to take seriously. And there's all kinds of just like really sloppy lore that feels like it has like half of a thought thrown into it. The love interest is so bland. The love interest is just a girl to be shown things by Jay Baruchel and have her eyes open to the wonder of electricity and One Republic, because there's a lot of One Republic in this movie.
I need another story, something to get off my chest.
Yeah, it's a 2 out of 5. It's not very good, but if you ever want to see maybe the most 2010 movie ever that features One Republic's secrets no less than 4 times in the soundtrack, Sorcerer's Apprentice from 2010.
It was a better time, Zach. It was a better time.
I kind of agree.
We're just a girl. Yep.
I fondly remember that one. That was a time, wasn't it?
Yes.
What am I going to talk about?
I'll
talk about Groundhog Day.
Yeah,
why not?
Oh yeah, okay.
I watched that with these guys and with another friend of ours a few nights ago, and it was my first time. I believe Zach and Mitchell, you'd both already seen it. Is that right?
Yep.
But I'm a big Bill Murray guy. According to my Letterboxd stats, he's my most watched actor performer
Really?
of all time.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's because of the Wes Anderson kick I went on.
Oh.
And but like a ton of his 80s stuff too, like the Ghostbusters, 3 of them, this, What About Bob, which we also watched, plenty of other stuff. Natalie Portman's only 1 film behind though, so we'll see how long it carries. But anyway, I really liked Groundhog Day. I liked it a lot, and as someone who sometimes grows impatient, I sort of knew the idea behind this was you were experiencing the same day over and over. And sometimes I think that's a trap for growing repetitive and dull in a film. Even in films I like the third Harry Potter movie, for example. You've got the like time turner thing in the final act. Whatever. Shut up, Zach. it loses rewatch value, I think. I don't think this one does. I mean, it's my first time watching it, but I feel like it's very evident to the audience every time we're experiencing a new day without repeating literally the entire day over and over and over again. And it's very economical in the scenes that it chooses to portray. And, you know, I think Murray and McDowell's romantic chemistry is questionable at best at the beginning, but then that turns out to be kind of a feature rather than a bug, because the whole point is that it takes him days and days and days and days and days to know her well enough to connect with her. And it's pretty funny where it should be funny, and I think appropriately dramatic where it can be. And, you know, Zach enlightened me to some of the sad tension between Harold Ramis and Bill Murray, but I think that probably made the film better, the way that they push back on each other, because you get a little bit of both. I was just really impressed. I liked it a lot. It's feel good. It's fun. It's only 100 minutes. So 4.5. I'd recommend it to pretty much anyone.
Yeah, I think it's fun to rewatch Groundhog Day, and you kind of see more things about how long he's been stuck in the cycle. And there's everybody always talks about how long has he been in here. I know people say, like, based on all the tasks that he learns and how long it takes to master a task, he was probably in there for like years, which kind of adds to the building sort of mental exhaustion as well. Yeah, I second the recommendation.
And third, Christian was laughing the hardest when he was trying to kill himself.
Yeah.
That's true. That was hilarious.
The toaster is the funniest moment in the whole movie.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess I'll talk about What About Bob then, logically. Freaking Yoda directed it. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I know there's some people that are a pretty big fan of it. I think, contrary to Groundhog Day, I feel like the concept is kind of pretty easy to wear out, honestly. But I will say that the chemistry between Murray and Dreyfuss is like second to none. I think Dreyfuss is like he's just the right amount of like appropriately frustrated, and it's really interesting to see how his family kind of just accepts everything, and just how it's almost relatable. Well, it is relatable in the sense that like we're kind of seeing it from his perspective, because like realistically how accepting they were of him would likely never happen, especially in the way that it did. And obviously there was a lot of ridiculous things for comedic effect that happened, but I think it's just interesting to think like you'll go about your day and just feel like everything is just completely against you no matter what. No matter how hard you try, everything is literally just trying to make you fail. And I think just how he deals with that, and then Murray kind of just being this consistently bothersome figure on top of his, just his face is hilarious too all the time. Unlike a friend of ours we have in other movies that Christian resents.
Oh.
Multiple men, actually. Bill Murray has a fantastic face, and he's hilarious. But I do think, although he has a really wide comedic range in this, I feel like his range is way like leagues better in Groundhog Day. And just seeing how he finally, just seeing him every day felt different. He looked like he was reacting differently, and you could just see right away in his face how he's going to be acting throughout that day. And just a lot of like key aspects of what makes a really good actor show through like all the time in Groundhog Day. And I do think he plays a good dummy. I do think he plays a pretty good dummy, and he really adds a lot of flair to it that makes What About Bob a lot less annoying than it could be, I guess. But I mean, I gave it 3.5 out of 5. It's still a really good movie.
That's one of my mom's favorite films of all time. I will just say, I think the viewing experience is enhanced by the riotous laughter of someone that likes it more than you. Because, I mean, all it takes is, like, the baby steps to the elevator to get her to go nuts. So,
yeah. Yep. Well, I guess we'll go on to the minute of explosions and shooting and things.
Yes, indeed. Mitchell has 1 minute to discuss munitions and weaponry that he found intriguing or worth mention in The Bridge on the River Kwai. Mitchell, your minute starts now.
So Major Warden, played by Jack Hawkins, is using a Ordnance SBML 2-inch mortar. right? And it's interesting. People usually think of like a mortar being on like a tripod and everything, but this is kind of like a long-barreled infantry one that you can hand hold, and it's like very versatile. Probably not very accurate, especially if you don't have an actual spotter and it's just a random Siamese woman that's never seen it before. But otherwise, it can be used for smokes, it can be used for munitions, and I thought it was really well used in the movie. And you don't see it very often. It's usually used for, it could be mounted on a light armored truck also, but it's a British light mortar that was designed in the 30s. So usually a platoon would have it. And there you go.
Have those sort of gone out of fashion with the rise of like grenade launchers and bazookas? Have those sort of taken the place of mortars, or?
Well, they kind of have a different role. They can be used for anti-infantry or for anti-light armor. Generally, mortars are used for infantry. But yeah, just different variants of mortars are usually used for like a platoon size, so like about 40 men to fight against just infantry. Yeah, bazookas are more like anti-armor.
Okay.
So just different purpose, but we still have grenade launchers today. A lot of it for NATO allies, at least, they have undersling M320 grenade launchers on M4 rifles and everything now. So similar purpose, though.
Well, okay. I learn new things every munitions minute.
Yeah.
Shall I go on my marvelous cinema tour to cancellation?
Yep.
I'm looking forward to this one.
Okay, so I've watched 18 different Marvel films this season. And the 18th, the final Marvel film of the season, maybe we'll keep doing this in future episodes. When I started this, I thought that I'd like to at least catch up to the current Marvel films, but I'm worried that will never happen, and I don't want to watch these for the rest of my life. But the one that I've reached now is Black Panther. So, first off, what I do want to say here is Black Panther marked the introduction of a lot of additional diversity, both in front of and behind the camera in the MCU. And that I do appreciate, and I think that is good and valuable. I do think it was a good idea to hire Ryan Coogler to direct this film, because Ryan Coogler is an African-American man and is bringing a different influence and mindset to this kind of a movie that a Caucasian director would have brought to it. I think a white-directed Black Panther movie would have looked entirely different to this movie, and I don't think that can be denied. But I think that this movie is still not very good. I think that stylistically it's really interesting, and I really like the art direction. Everything in Wakanda looks great. It's got great detail. There's a clear visual culture there. I think the way the movie looks, at least in the stuff that's actually on set and not previs, is great. However, the visual effects, action, and the editing surrounding both of those are particularly weak in this one, and I do think that comes from having Ryan Coogler as a director. Ryan Coogler is a good director, but Ryan Coogler is not a director who makes action movies. You look at Ryan Coogler's previous films, and he's the guy who makes character-based social dramas. Now somebody might go, what about Creed? He directed Creed. But like every Rocky movie, Creed is not a movie about boxing. It's a movie about a guy who is a boxer. So the most interesting and best stuff in Creed is Michael B. Jordan talking to people, and Michael B. Jordan in his neighborhood and with his family and with the other people he interacts with. And I would say that, like a lot of the Rocky movies, kind of the least interesting stuff in that film is the boxing. And it does feel like the stuff that Ryan Coogler is least interested in this movie is the action. But at the same time, I don't think he has very interesting characters to work with, because T'Challa is a very sort of honorable, straight and narrow, this is the right way and the wrong way character, and I think that is often very boring. I think that, what is his name? Killmonger. I think that Killmonger is
overt kill.
That was a character. That was a McFarlane Comics character.
Killballer.
I think that Killmonger is way more interesting than T'Challa, but I still don't think he's that interesting because he's a character who is entirely dictated by his values and his morals and his goal. And people aren't really like that. People have other things beside the thing they want to achieve. Unfortunately, I think one of the most interesting characters in this whole film is Andy Serkis's Claw, because he is just such an interesting, wild character. And I wanna fence accusations that are gonna come at me here, because Andy Serkis is one of the few white people in this movie, but I don't think his interesting qualities for me are because he is white, because Martin Freeman is the blandest piece of Wonder Bread in the world in this movie. And
Isn't he supposed to be?
Like the one other white guy. But I think Claw is so interesting where Killmonger kind of fails to be interesting. That said, I think Wakanda Forever, the Black Panther sequel, is one of the few MCU films that I'm kind of interested in seeing how it turns out. I'm not entirely writing off these films because a lot of the stuff they're bringing back in that movie, Shuri, I'm interested to see, not Ocean Master, I'm interested to see Namor, the submariner. I am interested to see some things that happen in that sequel film, and it definitely looks better than this movie in terms of the cinematography. So we'll see. But this first Black Panther is unfortunately a low point for me to end the Marvelous Cinemator on for now. 2 out of 5. It's definitely my highest ranked 2 out of 5 in the MCU, because I think this has a lot more potential than most of the other 2 out of 5s that I've given throughout this season. But it doesn't quite take the cake like I think it did for a lot of other people when it came out for me. So 2 out of 5, and if I do this again, I'll be coming back with Avengers Infinity War. We missed the big one by a hair, but that'll be what I come back on if we do like a Halloween special, or if I talk about these during the holiday specials.
The real big one's going to come in Phase 9.
Phase 9? I thought they were only on like 4.
No, Phase 9 from a bazillion years from now.
No!
Yeah, exactly. It's all part of the plan, Zach. It's all part of the plan.
I don't want to see Avengers Rise of the Fall of Voldemort's Left Toe.
Featuring
No,
Killmonger.
it's Howard the Duck 5, of course.
Oh, okay.
Howard
I might
the
be
Duck.
interested in that.
Talking about.
I might
Howard
be
the
interested
Duck-
in that.
You would have given Black Panther 3 if Howard the Duck showed up.
I absolutely would have. I don't like Marvel, but my attitude when it comes to Howard the Duck is shut up and take my money. I want to see a good Howard the Duck movie.
Yeah.
But we have.
I will mildly echo the sentiments, Zach.
I liked it. I think it's gotten too much. It's been hated on too far over time. I think it's just fine.
It's a victim of its own reputation, I think, because everyone went so crazy for it when it came out that, like, going into it now, there's definitely an attitude of, whether you intend to or not, there's an attitude of like, okay, impress me, and it's never gonna live up to the reputation that it got when like people were skipping days of school to like go see it with their family or whatnot. It's never gonna live
yelling
up to that.
Ibambe in the hallway.
It was a great experience in the theater. I will at least say that.
Okay, all right.
And R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman, obviously.
Okay.
Now, shut up, Mitchell. It's time for the rundown, and Mitchell can stop laughing because he needs to start numbering.
Whoa.
For the bridge on the river Kwai.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Yeah, we have stuff.
Kwai on the Bridge River.
Yes. Zach, are you ready to start us off?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I am. Yes.
Okay, cool. 3, 2, 1, go.
The oven.
3 out of 5.
The jungle.
4 out of 5.
Hitler has only got one ball.
5 out of 5.
Technicolor.
4 out of 5.
Drinking river water.
2 out of 5.
Always playing sick.
3 out of 5.
Just kind of hanging out at the field hospital.
4 out of 5.
Whistling in rank.
4 out of 5.
Anamorphic lenses.
4 out of 5.
Carrying on in the way one expects of a British soldier.
4 out of 5.
Stab first, ask questions later.
5 out of 5.
Actions forbidden by the Geneva Convention.
1 out of 5.
A chipped bone.
2 out of 5.
Telling Alec Guinness the odds.
4 out of 5.
Commanding the rabble.
4 out of 5.
Plastic explosives, wonderful stuff.
3 out of 5.
What have I done?
4 out of 5.
Good show, jolly good show.
5 out of 5.
Bird shots.
3 out of 5.
And with 5 seconds to spare, we're done.
Neat.
Quick. Nothing you can cancel me on.
Okay. Well, I think now we segue then to our... this is the finale of Season 3, so I guess we segue on to our Season 3 wrap-up.
Yep.
Our recap.
Mitchell really planned for this one. He really thought day and night how he's going to end the podcast after he asked an hour before if this is going to be the finale. So we're going to kind of follow the same format vaguely that we've been doing. I guess we'll start off with what was your guys' favorite episode, like, of the entire season? It can be yours if you want it to be. What was your favorite episode?
So not our favorite movie, but our favorite episode.
Our favorite discussion, basically. Okay. Yeah. I think this one's a lot tougher, honestly.
Yeah, I think we had a really good Season 3. Season 1, there was so much dead air and just question, answer. Season 2, we were a bit better. I think we kind of came into our own during Season 3. This is a hard one to narrow down. I'm pulling up my list of our episodes right now.
Yeah. Me too. Well, I'll start, I guess. I'm trying not to say Apocalypse Now because that was definitely my favorite film, but that might also be my favorite episode. I liked Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor was good.
That was fun, man. I think we're at our best when it's just fun, even when we don't love the movie. Yeah, and that was fun. So I think I'm mostly only speaking from my parents' perspective because I think they're the only listener I frequently hear from about our show. But no, there were a lot of laughs in that one. And I was reviewing the old rundowns for a reason that may or may not become evident. And the way we ended that rundown with Josh Hartnett as man and Kate Beckinsale as woman was pretty hard to top, I think.
Yeah.
I do think Apocalypse Now was a great discussion. I think we agreed with each other a lot during that episode, though, which is always tricky. I know it's very recent. I think our episodes on Bone Tomahawk and Return of the Jedi were some of our best discussions. I think there was a lot of interesting stuff that came up during those.
Yeah.
But I also want to shout out while we're here our two guests for the season. Returning guest Nick Hodden in our episode on Ivan's childhood, and then Amelia, who guested during Good Will Hunting, a title that still doesn't make any sense. I think it's always nice to get other people on the podcast as well and have those different voices there.
Yeah, that was fun.
Man. I'll say, hot take, I think Season 2 was better.
Oh, this is a very hot
take. I think Season 2 was better, but we were way more consistent this time. We had very few episodes where we were like, this was kind of all right. Like we, it's less of our discussion, like our ability to actually discuss it. It's more just thinking of things to talk about and trying to carry on a conversation. I feel like is like the hardest thing.
Yeah.
I would say in general, the more that we prepare, the better it is. But I also think some of our best discussions have come out of absolute nowhere. Like, I'll never stop referencing The End of the Mist. Like, there's no way that I thought that was going to end up the way that it did.
Yep. Such a vibrant conversation, I needed to include a trigger warning.
Yeah, but like I'll say, like, with mine, like, the ones that I wasn't as prepared for, I didn't like as much. And I think there might be ones like clearly Zach, I just want to like say this, like, patently this is true. Zach chooses like weirder films. Okay.
This is very true. Yes.
And it's very mixed, like how our discussions can turn out, but generally we get into really good conversations, and I feel like it feels a lot more seamless. The episodes feel a lot more controlled and seamless now. Like, we can have pretty much good discussions about anything is really what I'm trying to say. And like, yeah, I think Pearl Harbor is probably like my favorite episode, but we've had like some of our best discussions, honestly. I think were your guy, like YouTube, your choices had, like, we had some really good discussions. I think, like, especially having Nick on Ivan's childhood was good, and having that like Amelia fanning over Good Will Hunting, I think was a really good addition, and her ideas as well. I think it's just having guests definitely helps a lot. And yeah, I think just in general we were all very interested in in all of our picks this time, and I don't think there's really like a lot of resentment. I think if I chose Signs, I think Christian would have just left. I think he would have been done with this whole thing.
Yeah, man. I don't know. If we had to review The Village, I would be openly harsh.
Yeah. Like,
well, I think it depends, because there's two kinds of angry Christian. There's angry Christian who just doesn't want to talk about it, and there's angry Christian who's so frustrated at the movie he can't stop talking.
Yeah, or so frustrated that he can't even come up with the words. He's just,
yeah,
this is an outrage.
Suspiria was definitely the former Christian.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think The Beyond. I think our Beyond discussion was pretty good. I think the resentment. Anybody who's a fan already knows how much resentment there is, and I think that went good. We also had a pretty good variety, but anyway, yeah, I think Pearl Harbor is like my favorite, but I really can't choose like what our like objectively best episode was.
Cloverfield was very good too.
Cloverfield was good.
Yeah.
And
Rashomon
Mitchell,
was fun. Yeah.
You mentioned our fans, which and then Christian mentioned 10 Cloverfield Lane. So I think this is a good segue to say that we've definitely seen our greatest rise in followers this season. The channel City Mist Productions now has 62 followers on YouTube, which seems like very small potatoes, but we started this season with like 20.
Yeah.
So we gained like 42 subscribers, and they're basically all from the 10 Cloverfield Lane episode, which now has close to 6,000 views on YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're definitely attracting more people, and if anybody's listening right now, we appreciate you tuning in.
Yeah.
You probably don't all know us in person, I'm guessing.
A lot of
you
probably
Dan
do.
Trachtenberg. Very cool.
Oh, I would also be remiss to not mention. I never say remiss because I hear Christian say it, and then I used it, and now I don't know how to use it. I would be remiss to mention, right?
I think you're right the first
mention,
time. I don't know.
Damn it! All right. The Batman was a great like kicker off for the season, even though it wasn't really officially our first episode. It did awesome on Anchor and on everything else, and
great.
That was also a really good discussion, and I do definitely think we should do like a release timing.
I want to get you guys on the Indiana Jones 5 so we can all talk about how sad we are about it.
Yeah,
that's a real pre-planning, but yeah.
So I guess I have to ask what your least favorite episode was, which kind of sucks, but whatever.
You know, I mean, you know I hate Italian horror, but even that wasn't a horrible... I think, like, for me, that was a horrible episode just because I didn't know how to vocalize my distaste. I think I did a better job. I was a much more cold anger with Suspiria, where I could adequately destroy Zach with my unbiased facts.
Oh, yeah.
This time... I don't know. Every time I choose a bad one, it's because I think I didn't do super well on it, and I guess maybe American Psycho, because similarly, I just feel like I had no idea what to say about it. I liked it a lot, but I truly just didn't know what to say in terms of genre, in terms of performance. I had little more than platitudes, but you two certainly did well on it, so it was still a good episode.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think for me, a least favorite episode often comes from a film where I feel like it didn't inspire as much conversation as I was expecting, and then it sort of just turns into me kind of reciting trivia for the episode, and then not as much discussion stems as I would have liked. And I don't think we had any episodes quite like that, or at least not as bad as we sometimes did in seasons 1 or 2 this season. But I do think the closest we came to that might have been Leaving Las Vegas. I really enjoyed that film, and I think there were some interesting things brought up about it, but I think it incited less debate and conversation and discussion than I was expecting, and I guess it kind of disappointed me as a topic of conversation a little bit. Not to say it's a bad episode. I still think it's a film worth talking about, and I think we raised some good points that are worth taking a listen to. Please, dear listeners.
This episode is awful,
I do
but
think
you better find out why.
I think if there were any that didn't quite rise to my expectations, it might have been that episode.
And for me and Christian, or at least for me, I know that was like kind of out of left field when it like compared to what we usually do. I think it was kind of just a little bit of a genre shaker upper. And Yeah, I mean, no, go ahead, Christian. It's your turn.
No, I didn't really have anything else to add. I'm kind of sad that I didn't like that one more. Because I don't even think it was like Drek or anything like that. It just really just did not land with me, which is weird. I didn't really have anything to add. Sorry, Mitchell.
No, yeah. Man, like choosing a least favorite, I could tell you which film I enjoyed the least. I don't know if you can guess.
Liberal arts.
Yeah, that was easy. All right. That was so. I felt so much nothing from that, and we had a good discussion though. Yeah, I think it was a pretty good discussion, and I tried to say as much as I could identify, but
you're much better than we are because you still engage earnestly and have good talks, Mitchell.
Stop.
This is true.
No. Okay. Well, okay. My most disappointing episode, honestly, we just did it. It was Lion King. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that we really could have. It doesn't mean it's bad. I just kind of I was kind of sad that I didn't. Like I was saying about like the preparation thing. Like I feel like if I really talked more comprehensively about it, but at the same time, it's an animation, so I'm not to say there's like less to talk about necessarily, but it's also like it's much easier to get the point across when it's like Disney or Pixar or something.
It's like confined differently than like
like what I wanted to say about Inside Out, I said in Week in Review. Basically, there's really not a whole lot you can. It's just you watch it. Stupid, but yeah, I guess that I don't want to say it's like my least favorite episode, but man, I don't know. I almost honestly Finding Nemo and Fistful of Dollars feel so jarring to look back on because we kind of just. It was weird going into that summer mindset. Maybe that's just for me because I was very busy this summer.
They do feel like a long time ago.
Yeah, but still both really good choices and good discussions. So I'm just gonna back out of this question as hard as I can without getting a straight answer. Dang, yeah, that's See, I want to ask like what our favorites were from each other. I guess we could do that. I won't do least favorites. Just our favorites from the other two people. And I guess your own, sure. Yeah.
Let's see.
Well, I will say I really liked that Zach brought in A Fistful of Dollars. I think there was some hesitance on both sides because it was an Italian production, but I quite liked it. I think I got a lot out of it, and it's something I've been meaning to check out because it's so frequently cited as a direct example for Lucasfilm, both in the 20th century and now. So that was just really cool for me to see as a fan of that style sort of extrapolated to larger, more contemporary productions. I guess for Mitchell, I did Apocalypse Now. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Cat's out of the bag.
You forget it. You'd love that, dude.
It blew my mind. Listen or watch to that if you haven't already, but I literally watched the film. We were meant to watch the theatrical cut. I watched all 3 cuts and the feature-length documentary because I was so obsessed. It literally like consumed a whole weekend. It was just Apocalypse Now nonstop. I couldn't stop. It was ridiculous. It's just so stunning. I think, and I have a sort of arbitrary list on Letterboxd where I rank all of the films we talk about here, and Apocalypse Now tops that list. I decided it tops Casablanca. So there you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, for one thing, in our video call right now, all I can see is a frozen image of me blinking. I don't know if that's the case for you guys, but it's very distracting.
I can see.
But but in terms of a favorite that Christian brought to the table, I do think maybe either Nemo or Rashomon. Nemo wasn't like a favorite film for me, but in terms of the discussion, I did really appreciate what we got to talk about with Nemo and the different appeal that we all found in it, and also the different ways that we found it funny, I think were very individual to like how we watched it. In terms of a favorite from you, Mitchell, I definitely have a soft spot for the 10 Cloverfield Lane episode because of the viewers that it brought in for us. Yeah. But I really enjoyed Bridge on the River Kwai, but I do think that Pearl Harbor discussion was a lot of fun. Every now and then it's fun to just bring I think we should consider bringing more bad movies into the podcast.
That's what I was going to mention.
Because every now and then it is fun to just kind of as a trio just wail on a movie. Like we did with Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor received no mercy. I think it was kind of hilarious to talk about and edit and then listen to afterward.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, man, you guys put out. I don't know what to tell you at this point. Phew. Yeah, Finding Nemo is pretty up there. This is kind of crazy. I'll be honest with you. Like, from Zach's, Ivan's childhood.
Great.
That one was really. There's really a lot. Not only was there really a lot to talk about, as there usually is with Zach picks, but there's kind of an air about it where I felt like we really like understood what we were talking about, and like we could really get into the technical stuff because we're kind of experienced. Yeah, me and Christian are big cinephiles now. We know where to point the camera. But yeah, we had
Doesn't
some
stop
really
me from trying.
yeah no,
true.
and because we were trying, we had a really like fruitful discussion about like the technicalities and stuff, and also having that war backdrop and everything. And there's just a lot of things between us that were interesting about it, and kind of the comments that you made about Finding Nemo can be easily applied to Ivan's childhood too, and kind of how I mentioned with Nick's personal love for Tarkovsky and everything. I think it really worked well. It was a little bit of a special one, I guess. But man, Christian, you know what? I really liked Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Wow.
Really?
I liked it more than I thought I would. And it's just so different, and it really, I don't know, it really made me think about romances and like romantic stories in a different way.
Wow.
And
awesome.
More from our discussion, the actual movie, but I think and
I'll
the
still
cat,
take it.
obviously the cat is number one. Cat the cat, but yeah, I think there was a lot more that we talked about than I would have thought we could have talked about with that, and there's also some really interesting trivia behind it, and it made me really interested in the movie and the genre. So even though it wasn't like my cup of tea, I think it resonated with me more than I thought. So thanks, Christian.
Right on.
But yeah. What about your own? What were your favorites of your own choices?
Oh,
I wasn't hard set on talking about Return of the Jedi, and honestly, as a rewatch, it was incredibly disappointing because as a Star Wars fan, I was looking for like any reason to bump it up to a 4.5, and I couldn't find one, and that was just sad for me on a personal level. But it was probably I think, the best discussion I led all season. My favorite film, I have a penchant for choosing almost exclusively films that I really, really like, so that's hard to say. But I guess I'll just also say I really was glad that I got to get Mitchell in particular to watch Rashomon to get you your first Akira Kurosawa
Yeah,
film.
Rashomon was another one. That was really close for me.
I think maybe. Again, I think the Bone Tomahawk episode turned out great, and I know that might just be recency bias. But Metropolis, I think, was one that turned out really well. I'm trying to put like a silent film in every season. And every prospective season that I have planned has a silent film in it, even if we don't get to those seasons. But like thinking back to like season 1, The Phantom Carriage, when I said on the night that I decided we were going to be watching The Phantom Carriage, because originally we were going to watch a totally different film, and then that wasn't available, so I had to find something else. And the night that I decided on The Phantom Carriage, Christian was like legitimately angry with me that I was choosing a silent film that would be so unpopular with the people who listen to the podcast, and going from that to like Metropolis, where we had this genuinely like appreciative discussion about like the pros and cons of silent cinema and German expressionism and the earlier epics of the genre, I thought was a really gratifying experience, and it was kind of a mark of I think how far the podcast has come in 3 years. So yeah, I definitely appreciated that conversation that we had, even if Metropolis might not top my personal rankings of the movies that we watched.
Dang it. I keep thinking, I'm hearing and you guys talk, and then I'm very interested, and then I forget that I should probably figure out which one was mine. They're all like, a lot of mine were good, but like for very specific reasons too, and that's why I'm trying to compare like how important the reasons really are.
Oh no.
Yeah.
If we're gonna do a Family Guy musical reference, it must be Baba O'Reilly.
Okay, well, you guys said Pearl Harbor.
That's a song outside of Family Guy.
You guys said no, it
Well,
isn't.
so is the bird is the word.
I know.
I would really have to say Pearl Harbor. That one just really sticks out. I'm sorry. I know I gotta be a normie, but that's just what it is. Same reason.
I'm glad you came back, Mitchell, or else we would have had a Family Guy motivated argument.
We would have.
We would have gone straight off.
That's a discussion I never want to have.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is it a Family Guy question?
No, it's not.
Okay.
A Family Guy.
Then you're allowed.
I wanted to ask.
a question.
I don't know. We examine a lot of different things when we talk about these movies, but I always hone in more than anything else. I hone in on performances. So was there like, I don't even want to restrict it to like best or favorite performance, but was there like one actor or performance or character that just stuck out to you more than the others?
Alec Guinness.
Well, yeah.
Twice.
From a certain point of view.
I've got to say Nicolas Cage. I mean,
outta here.
it might not be my favorite performance from him in Leaving Las Vegas, and I think we might have had like more collective fun with Nicolas Cage night that we had like a week or two later. But I think Nicolas Cage is such a special actor and brings such interesting like expressionistic influences to every performance that he gives, even if it is in The Sorcerer's Apprentice, that like I have to shout him out when given the choice.
I'd say like Christian Bale, Martin
Yeah.
Sheen, obviously.
Oh yeah.
I just don't even think that's a fair comparison. But
Martin Sheen might have delivered my favorite performance from him in Apocalypse Now, if I'm totally honest. Because Martin Sheen has been on this podcast before. He was in the final countdown. And looking back through my notes, I remember writing, because I had seen Martin Sheen in other films at the time, I remember writing when we watched the final countdown, because I'm still taking my Cookie Pocket notes in the same notebook. I wrote, I don't really think I like Martin Sheen as an actor, just in general. Way back in season 1. But he's
I wonder why.
amazing in Apocalypse Now. And really impressed me in a way that I don't think he ever has in any other movie, really.
yeah. Mary Elizabeth Winstead and John Goodman.
Hype.
Both of them. I mean, I don't know. I just think they're really not going to have like a performance like that. I think it was kind of I think it was just really the story and the setting and all of that really brought out something in their performances that you probably wouldn't really see in other ones they would give, in my opinion. But those were definitely standouts. Like Christian mentioned, like performance focused. I think that was a heavily performance focused movie. I think I wouldn't have been nearly as interesting if she didn't give us a motive of a performance in that one.
Yeah, definitely. They were
And
both
relatable.
great.
Mm-hmm.
I would put Goodman up there for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like it's probably not because of how good of an actor Brando was, but I would say Kurtz. If only, I'd say it's much more of a credit to Coppola's editing and exhaustive direction and work with that man after he did none of the work he was supposed to beforehand. Yeah, I don't know.
And Clint Eastwood.
We'll give a shout out to Clint.
This is a special circumstance for him.
He may show up again on the podcast.
Robin Williams. Sorry, that would be my answer.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. Yeah.
A lot of good stuff.
I guess I have one more question. What do you guys? What are you going to bring to the table if we mayhaps have a fourth season?
Boy.
What are you gonna do? What's your plan of
A
action?
little sizzle reel. How
Sizzle
are we doing
reel.
here?
Well, do you want to know exactly what I'm bringing?
No,
to
not
potential
exactly.
Season 4?
No, just to give us
Cliff.
like a little teaser.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm someone who likes traditions. I'm someone who likes returning things in a season. I like to return to certain themes for my choices. So, if we do a season 4, you might get a little bit of Italian horror from a different director we haven't met before on the show.
Wow.
A little bit of Hammer horror, maybe.
Uh-huh.
My friend David David Lynch might show up.
David Lynch.
we might get some Japanese cinema from Akira Kurosawa's close friend and collaborator Ishiro Honda. Wow. And then there might be a Western in there somewhere too. That's just a bit of a sample platter. That's not windows on everything that I might want to bring to a season 4, but just a few peeks here and there.
All right. Well, I'll be honest. My phone died like a few minutes ago, so I can't look at the notes to see what I've prepared specifically. But I will say my big goal next season is to not make it a bunch of things I've already seen. There will be some of that, but I want to try to choose stuff that will be a first watch for me for the podcast. I only did that once in season 1 with Sergio.
And we know how that worked out.
Yeah. Well, I'm deciding to jump back into that fire just because I think, I just want to mix it up more. I was ready to give up Star Wars, but then you guys had me bring Return of the Jedi back, and now I don't know. Maybe we'll see a Gungan. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, everyone's favorite 2-parter from the Clone Wars. I'm ready.
The holiday special. Well, I've generally liked the genre mix-ups that I've had. There are some that there were this season that I planned for, and to be honest with you, I think I might keep the same few films that I'm not going to mention right now, but that I was planning on having. I think those will be good memes. I think we're going to really go crazy a little bit, and I really want to follow up on what Zach had mentioned earlier about having a really crappy movie that we can watch that we can all enjoy talking about, and it's going to be the crappiest. I don't know what it is yet, but it's going to be the crappiest thing, but it's going to be the best thing to talk about. And
okay.
Yeah, in terms of genre mix-ups, we're definitely going to have World War II in there once or twice or 3 times.
Oh, of course.
Maybe. We'll see.
Oh, my goodness.
We won't do Schindler's List because we already watched that together.
Mm-hmm. You've already
maybe
done
it'll
World
be
War II like a dozen times, haven't
you? I've heard Christian complain about movie length, so maybe Das Boot will be in there. We'll see.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. Gonna be a comedy, a horror. Gonna be crazy.
All right.
Cool.
These are great sneak peeks for a year from now, for the viewers to tune back in. But you might see us for the holidays, which hopefully Cookie Pocket is as much of a holiday tradition for your family as it is for ours.
We are our family.
Yeah. We have no other relatives. We live in this web broadcast.
Yes. The second this turns off, my depression just accelerates. I have no food or water. Please help me, Joe Biden.
Okay.
So, on to
Shall we
Christian.
segue? Yes.
We'll Paul Blart segue right into Christian.
Duh. Okay.
More segues than a Weird Al Yankovic video.
Yes. Right on. It's a good thing that I texted this rundown leftover list to Zach so I can pull it up on this here computer, and I'm wearing a watch so I can still time us.
Wow.
So, as is the nature of the rundown, we often have really fun lists with fun things, but the 60-second limit forbids us from finishing many of those lists. Until we make it to the finale, in which case we maybe get to do some of the things we left behind. And, to a listener that has not listened or to every episode, or is not acquainted with every film we've discussed,
this
is going to sound a little bit like nonsense.
Oh.
I promise you, each and every one of these terms is applicable to just one film that we've discussed. Maybe a couple of them apply to more. Yeah, a couple of them might apply to more, but maybe have a fun little game with yourself. Try to match all of this nonsense with whatever film you think it goes with. Okay.
And if you don't recognize some, maybe listen to the whole season and then come back, and then maybe you will.
Yeah, and then we'll have a meet and greet in Los Angeles. We'll sign your pop figures.
Yeah, we'll have a meet and greet for all 62 of you.
Yeah.
I'll order pizza. Okay. Zach, are you ready to start us off?
I am, yes.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to wait till it clicks to a round. Okay. And in 3, 2, 1, go.
Sussudio by Phil Collins.
3 out of 5.
John Gallagher Jr. as Emmett DeWitt.
3 out of 5.
Simpin' for Masha.
3 out of 5.
PBR Street Gang.
3 out of 5.
Transformation Effects.
4 out of 5.
Driving to California to see about a girl.
2 out of 5.
Pretty in Pink.
3 out of 5.
Elton John's musical contributions.
4 out of 5.
Hans Zimmer's musical contributions.
3 out of 5.
Kenyon College.
2 out of 5.
16 Candles.
3 out of 5.
Replacing Yub Nub with space jazz.
3 out of 5.
Taking off one's face mask.
4 out of 5.
Coppola cameo.
4 out of 5.
Gramophone Springs.
4 out of 5.
Josh Radnor and the Weird World.
2 out of 5.
You say goodbye to my wife, I'll say hello to yours.
3 out of 5.
C-3PO blatantly impersonating a deity despite protocol.
4 out of 5.
Playboy Playmates.
2 out of 5.
1 second, reading something because it's fun.
3 out of 5.
Time!
Oh.
And a few things will never be heard ever.
No. Unless we have like a
In the grand ultimate.
15-year anniversary. Cookie Pocket. Centennial.
At that point, we can just write new ones. My goodness. Well, I don't know. Who gets to say goodbye? I don't want to say goodbye.
Wow, yeah. This feels like the end of an era. It's strange, even though we've ended like 2 of these seasons before.
Yep, we are all going off to collage again. And how else can I dox us? We live on the eastern side of the U.S.
We do. My address is 123 help.
Yep, and yeah, it's been great. Another great run. May or may not see you at the end of this year. See if the world blows up by season 4, and we'll see.
I mean, we might see you a little bit sooner. This season is scheduled to end on my birthday. So happy birthday to me.
Yay.
And you might see us a little sooner than you expect. But we won't say anything too concrete for now.
For now, just go back to season 1 and see how far we've come.
Yeah. I mean, 78 episodes. It's
Wow.
Jeez.
pretty long way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
And
lot of hours.
Keeps
Yeah.
getting longer. The bridge will be built and then blown up.
Eventually.
All right, dear listener, cookie your pockets another day.
Ta-ta for now.
Thanks.